Okay, this is going to be Q&A part 2 because this video ended up being quite long. So if you haven't watched the other part, go ahead and watch it. I'll link it for you somewhere. And we're going to go ahead and finish answering some of these questions that you guys asked me because you have a lot and I can't seem to keep my answers short. So if you're new, hi, I'm Christine, a homeschooling mama of 3, and in today's video I'm answering a bunch of homeschool questions and questions in general. So please subscribe if you're interested in homeschool content, and I will share. I homeschool and wonder how you can earn more income whilst homeschooling from New Zealand. There's lots of ways that you can work from home and homeschool. It's not easy though, especially as my kids are getting older. Like I find it a lot harder to fit in time to focus on work. My kind of work, my line of work is a lot of it is passive income, and so I do like batch work and then that kind of pays off over time. So I do blogging and I do YouTube. And so with the two of those things combined, I bring in extra money into our home. That's not going to work for everybody. So there are different ways. I don't really have like a great big list of things that I can share with you though, because I haven't looked into a ton of them. I personally don't love multi-level marketing. I've done it in the past and I don't like it. I don't care if other people do it, but that's not something I love, but that's something a lot of people do. What is a skill that you have that you can share? Like, are you good at taking pictures? Could you do mending for people? Could you do ironing for people? Like, there's always going to be something that someone else doesn't want to do or would prefer to pay someone else to do that you might be able to do. So, think about it that way. What's the thing or things that you let slide or don't get done? Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so something I don't get done, it'll be the enrichment stuff. Like when we were sick at the end of term, I just like dropped basically all the enrichment stuff. So if it's something that I don't have the supplies for, I will also be really bad at dropping it. I don't love doing nature walks. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I like them when I'm out there, but the thought of doing it and getting them ready, I don't love. So, we also need to get new gumboots, and that will make a big difference this year because the grass is wet and I don't want like wet feet. So I'm a princess. So it would probably be like the nature study outings thing. How many outings do you do each week/fortnight with your kids? That depends what you class as an outing. We're now meeting up with the homeschool group once a week, and then I have my daughter go to ballet once a week, but that's not really like, I'll drop her off and I'll go do chores in town while she's doing that. So once or twice, not usually more than that. And that's not including church on Sunday. Will you be using the new versions of language arts from The Good and the Beautiful? Probably. I haven't, like, I want to see them first before I commit to anything. We're currently, like, using their old version of level 1 with my son. I don't know if I'll switch mid-year. It'll depend. We did with math, but I really was not enjoying the math, their previous version of level 1, so that was an easy switch, but we're doing okay with the language arts at the moment, so we'll see. Do you explore all the wonders of New Zealand as a family? It would be a dream to live there for me. We do. Now that the kids are getting older, we try and plan like a winter holiday every year. Last year we went to Taupo, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from us, and that was lovely. We had great fun. I think I actually have traveled a lot more of New Zealand than my husband has, and I think that is because my family's immigrants. We're from South Africa, and so when we came here, my parents wanted to see the country. My husband was born and bred here, and so it's less of, I don't know, I find that the locals don't travel as much as those who like have come into the country and want to see it. That's just been my experience. I know that's a sweeping statement, but yes, so yeah, generally speaking, we do. I've seen a lot of it. We want to do a tour of the South Island, but I'm waiting till my kids are a bit older because I really want them to remember that. My parents did it with me when I think I was 9 or 10 at the time, and I still have really good memories of that. I loved it. How do you stay organized? Will you end homeschooling at a certain age? How do I stay organized? That depends on what area you're talking of. With homeschooling, I use my Advance planner. I love it. I always have a link for it down in the description below. It's like, it has my head in there because I just like put all my thoughts and everything into there. So with homeschooling, that's what I do with like general house stuff. I don't know. I have lots of systems that I use. I do like to be organized. It keeps me sane. Will you end homeschooling at a certain age? We have no plan to. I plan on homeschooling through graduation. Okay, next question. I know the US has rules/regulations for homeschooling. We have to report and show progress to our state, etc. Does New Zealand have similar requirements? Do you feel it's strict or very relaxed regulations? Do you feel that has impacted how you homeschool, or if others there choose to homeschool or not? That's a really good set of questions. I do actually have a video on homeschooling in New Zealand and the regulations, which I can link here. We have to provide a we have to apply for an exemption to homeschool by the time our children turn 6. So your child either has to be enrolled in a school or they have to have an exemption to homeschool. That is quite a process as far as like putting it together. You have to prove that your child is going to be educated as well as and as often as if they were in school. So it can be like you have to write down all the things. It takes a while to put it together. But I do think it's important. I think it's a really healthy process for homeschool parents to go through because it really does help you to solidify what you want to do with your child. You don't have to tell them why you want to homeschool, just that how you're going to do it and prove to them that you're going to do it as well. After that, you don't have to show any progress or anything like that, but you do have to declare every 6 months that you're still homeschooling or that you've re-enrolled them in school. That's it. You just sign a piece of paper. In fact, I actually just got mine in the post today, so there's that. We don't have to report any like time or like testing or anything of that sort. Do you feel that it has impacted how you homeschool? I don't think so, honestly. You kind of have freedom to do what you want once you have your exemption. I think that most people who go through the process of applying for an exemption have their children's best interests at heart because it takes quite a bit of work and effort to get through that all. So yeah, I don't think you're going to want to homeschool if you're not willing to do that anyway. So one I got is how to prep curriculum. That was one of the questions I got, and that depends on the curriculum. Most of my curriculum I buy in PDF version, and I print and download and all that at home, and I bind it at home. I've got a laminator for laminating front covers and a binding machine. So that's what I do with most of my stuff. And whatever I can, I try and keep so that it can be reused with other kids. Marriage, keeping space for your partner in your homeschool. This is good. So my husband doesn't have a very active part in our homeschool, but he is more than willing to jump in whenever I ask him for some help or advice or whatever. He's there to help with that. So he's my support partner, but he's not necessarily an active participant in our homeschool. I think it's great. My husband probably does more of like the life skills stuff, teaching our kids like stuff around the house and things like that. What to do with preschool child when homeschooling older kiddos? Well, by the time my kids got to preschool age, which I would class about age 3, they seemed to be pretty good at like just joining in with us and entertaining themselves. Before that, baby and toddler, may God go with you because it is really hard. So if you're in that stage right now, you're not, and it's really hard, you're not doing anything wrong. It just really is really hard. So do whatever you have to do to survive. It will not last forever and you'll get there. It's really helpful if you can pair older kids with younger kids and like so you can work with other kids, but it just do what you have to. What are public schools like in New Zealand and what steered you away from that? This is a very good question. Public schools in New Zealand, I can only speak from my experience, so please don't get offended. If you're in New Zealand and you love public schools, that's fine. But this is my experience. I hated it. I went to public school till I was 10 years old. My husband was public schooled right the way through. He didn't have a terrible experience, but it also wasn't a great experience. The things I knew about when I was 10 years old horrified me now as an adult. The warped and twisted views of my peers on, lots of subjects. There was a lot of swearing and bullying and just nastiness and cattiness among girls. And I know that you can't eradicate that completely. I'm not trying to do that, but I don't want my 10-year-old to be knowing all of that stuff. And very recently, a report has just come out that like 1 in 5, I need to remember, I need to look it up, about 1 in 5 of our 15-year-olds are illiterate. I mean, like, what? that isn't we're not a third world country, you know? This is ridiculous. It's so bad, our education levels, and it's because they, instead of like pushing our kids to do well, they have just lowered the standards over time, and our class sizes are just too big. We've got 30 kids is pretty standard for a classroom size. Too much is put on the teachers. They don't get enough. They don't get paid enough. There's not enough parental support and just input. We generally rely on the schools to do more parenting than the parents themselves. There's a lot of reasons where I believe our schools are pretty messed up, and so I wouldn't say that academics is like one of the top reasons that we decided to homeschool. It was more about what we wanted our children to be learning in general in life. But there's also a lot more of a mindset, and there's also a mindset in our government, in our schools, that children belong more to the government than they do to their parents. And that's something that I feel very strongly about. Like, no, you did not. You did not gestate and birth my child. You do not get to have a say. And, you know, whether or not you did or not, if you're an adoptive parent, you are the parent. I just don't believe the government should have that much say in our children's lives. And so, like, there's a lot of reasons, but our academics are very poor. Social outcomes are very poor. And I don't want my children subjected to the bullying and harassment and general nastiness that was in the schools when I was a kid, and that was 20 years ago. So things certainly haven't improved since then, and so yeah, that has for sure made me want to homeschool. And I like being with my kids. I like the flexibility that it gives us. Okay, how do your kids do with socializing, and you? My kids do great with socializing. All my kids seem to be extroverts. I am the introvert. I like to socialize, but I like to do it on my terms, and I don't like to do it too often because it does make me tired. Not because I don't like being with people, but just because it makes me tired. But my kids have no problem socializing with people of all ages. It's never been an issue. How to wrangle the beginning of your homeschool journey. Oh, the beginning is just, it's hard for everybody. You're not doing anything wrong. Just take your time. Try not to overcommit to things. Go slow, and don't be afraid to chop and change as you need to. Like, it really is fine. I'm just trying to check and see if there's anything else. I think that was all of them. There's like things, food, sayings, cultural norms that are specific to New Zealand. That's a big question. New Zealand is a lot more relaxed as far as the way we raise our children, I would definitely say. We don't have nearly as heavy an emphasis on extracurriculars, like hardcore going for things, which, I mean, you can see that as a negative or a positive. We just have a slower lifestyle over here, which I appreciate, and people are more casual and relaxed, which can be both a good thing and a bad thing sometimes. People are late to stuff all the time, which is infuriating. But we say funny things. We definitely have quirky words. Like, one of the things which is kind of hysterical is that when you like reprimand someone, you would say like a kid would say, "Oh, the teacher growled me," which sounds so hysterical when you're not from New Zealand and it's out of context. So I'll give you an example. Once my aunt and uncle were visiting from South Africa, and my uncle found the dog sitting on the bed, and he told my mom about it, and she was like, "Well, why didn't you growl at her?" And he was like, "What?" Why would I growl at the dog? And so that was really, really funny. So there's things like that. G'day mate is something that's said a lot. That's probably more Australian than New Zealand. Sweet as. I have to be very careful how I say that because people think it sounds like something else. It's sweet as. Like, sweet as bro is something that people say all the time. No worries is something that is said all of the time. My vocabulary is very mixed up with things because I'm from a South African heritage, so I have stuff that comes from there. Like, quirky words my dad has always used that is from, like, no language whatsoever. And so I've got a lot of South African, and I've got the New Zealand, and then my mum's from, like, British heritage, so it's a real mixed bag. So some things probably aren't New Zealand, like, Kiwi things at all, and they're just from me. So, yeah, but that kind of is a broad answer to that question. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you check out both parts of these, or maybe I'll combine them. We'll see. I don't know. It was very chop and change because I got interrupted by my kids, like, many, many times. So we'll see how it turns out. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
What if the world had more of your smile? What if the wind could spread your love? What if your sweetness could reach everyone? There'd be no wars.